Welcome to Raising Kings, the podcast designed to empower single mothers raising strong, resilient, and emotionally intelligent Black sons. I'm your host, Jennifer Tolliver, author, counselor, and most importantly, a single mom walking this journey for over 9 years. I know the struggles, the doubts, the fears. But I also know this: we aren't just raising boys, we're raising kings. And with the right mindset, support, and strategies, we can break generational cycles and build unshakable bonds. So if you're ready to parent with confidence and build a legacy that lasts, you're in the right place. Let's get to work.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Raising Kings podcast. Today we have a special guest, Kevin Pryor, founder of 950 Media, co-producer and host of the 950 Lounge Show. How you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing good. I appreciate the time to come on your show. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you for being here. Welcome to the podcast, and we really appreciate you coming on. And so you've had such an incredible career in media and advertising, from working with companies like Subway, Sony, and JetBlue to launching the 950 Media and the 950 Lounge Show. So tell us a little more about your journey and how you kind of got started in that space.
Wow, you make me sound so old, Jennifer. But but you know, for me, going back at it, right, and obviously kind of being in the center of this growth for podcasts and independent media. When I first started many years ago in the advertising space, traditional media was TV, print, out of home, billboards, newspapers, right? That was it. YouTube was just a figment of somebody's imagination. There weren't any Apple. The word podcast wasn't even invented yet. Right. So obviously, just growing up in the traditional realms of media and being in that, working for certain companies, doing campaigns for some of those companies you mentioned, and a few others, I've always kind of been in the back end. Around, I would say 2016, 2017, my brother, who's a comedian, last name Pryor. So for some of your audience, if you know what that name means in the comedic space, you can Google that. That's not for today's conversation. But obviously, it's a name in the industry that has some weight. And he was like, I'm trying to build this, this momentum. What should I do? And unbeknownst to me, I had no one wanted to be involved. I said, why don't you do a show? Why don't you do a podcast? Podcasts were starting to become popular. And he's like, well, I need your help. Like, okay, well, I always got to help my brother out, but he's going to ask me. Make a long story short, we did it for a few years. We really wasn't consistent with it. It was kind of clunky to today's standards. And around 2018, we interviewed a very unknown, obscure politician by the name of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, aka AOC. Before she became a congresswoman, she was running in New York, and nobody thought she would win, even myself. Nobody thought. So somebody's like, oh, you want to interview her? I'm like, sure, why not? So into the studio, she brought her own camera crew, and we did the interview. Didn't think much of it. We had a great conversation, great dialect on a story, but didn't think much of it. 3 months later, she wins this election. People like, oh my God, how does obscure former bartender win an election against an established politician? 3 months after that, her Netflix documentary Knocked Down the House premiered. And somebody reached out to me and was like, yo, you're on Netflix. Like, Netflix doing what? I ain't no. And they said, no, your interview with the congresswoman. And then their producers reached out and said, hey, you guys had the best connection, greater connection than when she was on the Breakfast Club in New York, with Charlamagne, who's a national figure, better than a lot of other shows. And we went with yours. And that kind of like, even though we were doing the show, we were in a good groove before then, that kind of took us to another level where people started to reach out to us. Booking people started to reach out to us. Some major networks came to us. We turned them down because of something we're not doing no Kunta Kinte deals. But nevertheless, we started to really find our sea legs. And ever since then, it's really been a growth. And, now we fast forward to 2025, 950 Lounge is in, kind of in, in cruise control. We come on every day, multiple markets. We just signed a streaming deal, and we're working on some other things. So now, hence, here comes 950 Media, where 950 Media is now the byproduct or the growth of 950 Lounge, where now we can bring in other programming, bring other voices, bring other things to a network and to an organization, not just for a listening base, but to help those podcasts or those shows make profit. I think the hardest thing in this industry is making money, right?
Yeah.
Most people love to talk, right? Whether the show is good or not is irrelevant. But you know, if you're blessed with a voice, right, you can have a conversation. But how do you take that conversation and have somebody else be engaged in what you're saying, or they've learned? I've always followed the method, Jennifer, is that with my show, I want to entertain, inform, and obviously encourage. If I can encourage you, whatever the guest is, an encouragement conversation, just a fun conversation. If I can entertain you, that means you're going to stick around more. And if I inform you, you're better off before you started listening or watching, then you'll leave better. So I think those three things are important. And now with 950 Media, we're able to tell other stories with other people to grow the brand.
That's good. So what were those three things? Engage, inform, and
entertain.
Entertain. Okay, okay. Let me take my notes down. Definitely.
Free game.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so in all the experience that you have, what kind of changes have you seen the most when it comes to how Black stories, the voices in our narratives are represented? What has changed in those years you've been working?
Well, years ago, obviously, we weren't in control of our stories, right?
Right.
And I always use this and I don't mean to offend, but like, for instance, my mother's a pastor, and my sister is an assistant pastor, my niece is a youth pastor. And, you know, when I used to watch shows in the 90s, early 2000s, they always presented Black people in the church with, like, you know, the effeminate guy. He in the church, but, you know, he moves a little different. Whatever. But right. And I always feel like that's so disrespectful, because that's saying that every Black man who has a spiritual base has got to have an issue. And it's also the other thing, like, you know, like we laugh about, like, you know, you see people on different shows and different films, so they're always playing the same role, right?
Right.
Like, you know, for many years, Ice Cube played Doughboy in every movie. The
Yep.
angry Black man with the Jerry curl, ready to, you know, put two hot ones in you, or like the female that plays the stereotype, you know, popping her gum, playing with her hair, attitude. And I think, again, when you start thinking about people who necessarily are not around Black folks, we only represent like 14% of the population. So there are clusters of this country that are not around us every day. So where do you think they get their information from? The 6 o'clock news, the things that are coming on some of these shows that kind of glorify that. And I always felt like that was a problem. And I think now, fast forward to where we're at now, and even with your show, we're able to tell our own stories. We don't need the media outlets. You know, yes, you know, people, you know, terrestrial TV and, you know, major programming is still relevant, but a lot of people are cutting the cord. A lot of people, I watch more YouTube than I do regular television. So I know, like, if I'm doing it, that means a lot of other people are doing it. And we're able to tell our stories. We're able to tell not just the bad things. You hear that every day. But let's talk about the triumphs. Let's talk about the positives. Let's talk about people like yourself that, you know, are single mothers and going through it, but not complaining about it and trying to raise their kids the best way. Let's talk about the successes of brands like 950 Media, where we pulled it out the mud and nobody thought we, you know, even family members laughed and we started doing 950 Lounge. Let's talk about the positives. We know what we have in our communities. We know some of the adversity and challenges, but it's not always, I got to have a wicked jump shot or shoot or sell crack rock to make it. Let's talk about the Black lawyers and doctors and the success stories, and stop looking at people who are people of color and saying, well, if you made it, well, that means you had to sell out. No, that just means that you worked harder and you had some great influences. And I think, again, if we just pass it down, like we're having this conversation, and somebody will probably see this or hear this and go like, wow, you know what? I don't feel like I have anybody I can talk to. Well, use motivation from this conversation to make yourself better.
Right, exactly. And with that, it's like it takes a lot of the gatekeeping aspect off of media and entertainment, because before there was only, one channel to get to what you wanted to do, but now we have the opportunity to hear all the voices.
Exactly.
And if there's one we don't like, we just go to the next person, but we have that choice.
And understand our mosaic, right? We're like a big quilt, right?
Yep.
We're matching different patches, but we make this big quilt. We're not all the same. Like, it always bothers me when like they'll go to like a go-to person. It used to be Spike Lee. It was once Jesse Jackson. I think now it's Stephen A. Smith. Where like they represent the whole black, diaspora. No, we're not all alike, and we're not all cookie cutter. So again, like I said, I think sometimes that's our fault, but we need to start putting out these positive images and positive conversations. And that's why I think, again, having this conversation, accept your invitation, and be on this special show is so important, because somebody's going to hear this and they're going to grow from it and they're going to learn from it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Kevin. Yeah. And with that being said, so many people they dream about getting into the media, radio, and podcasting, but they don't know really where to start.
Right.
So what would be your advice for someone looking to break into the industry and make a name for themselves?
Well, I think the first step would be is that you gotta really want to do this, right? I think people come into this thing and they're going to be like Wendy Williams overnight, right? Oh, I got a podcast. Everybody who walks around one of these feel that, you know what, I'm a star, right? And it's just, y'all don't know it yet.
Right.
But the key, obviously, and I say, we made a lot of mistakes. So, I try to tell people now, you ain't got to follow exactly in my footsteps. Kind of, see my steps and walk around the mines. But you got to want to do this, right? It's fun if you do an Instagram live or you got a YouTube page. But if you really want to profit from it, grow a business from it, that's the easy part. If you're independent, number one, you probably come out of pocket for editing, right? So yeah, you might record something, but you're gonna need a really good editor, right? That's number one. Number two, in a road where everybody's driving right to left, how do I make people see me coming left or right? How do I turn my car around and be noticed by everybody? That's probably the biggest hurdle.
Yeah.
Advertising. Not just putting, on your Instagram where it's 90% shadow ban. You really got to invest in promotion and marketing. That's number two.
Yeah.
So that's putting out money for there. Number three is obviously having something engaging to talk about. Just saying, yo, what's up? My man, it ain't gonna cut it. You got to have some conversation. And number four, which is probably the biggest thing, is a lot of folks don't want to be vulnerable. Like I think they see TV and they watch Drink Champs and stuff, and they want to be characters.
Right.
But really what separates, I think, the great shows from the ones that are just talking is being open with who you are. I mean, everybody on Instagram makes $2 million in summers in the French Riviera. I get it.
Right, yeah.
But having a situation where you're vulnerable and you're real and having conversations, you can have fun, but if everybody wants to have fun every day and every moment, then they don't need us, right? You just a lot of people can watch. But if you bring in different levels to the conversation, like I always call what I do radio gumbo, right?
Okay.
Because you throw gumbo in a pot, you put a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
So while somebody might like the political conversations and not, maybe the ratchet hour, because there's a little ratchet.
Of course.
But it's something for everybody. So somebody gets something. So if somebody wants to start doing this, number one, you got to really commit. You got to commit to a lot of sleepless nights. And if you're working a day job, like a lot of us are doing this, then you're going to have to find time. Nobody wants to hear about, I had a 12-hour shift. I don't want to do it today. Or nobody wants to hear about, can we change our interview to next week because my baby mother, nobody wants to hear it. So if you're going to commit to it and be real about it, it's fine. If it's just a hobby, it's great. Nothing wrong with having a hobby where you just come on when you want to come on live and you talk about some of the topics of the day. That's cool. But when it's a business and it comes down to where you're trying to make a living off it, or you have partners that are relying on you, then you have to be uber focused and make sure it's something you really want to do and have a game plan of doing it.
Great. So as part of that game plan, I know this is like a broad question, but is there a certain amount to start with as far as an advertising budget in relation to, the amount that you're posting? Like what's a good kind of balance with that?
I think, Jennifer, that varies, right? It varies to each person's level, right? Because if we all had $100,000 to throw on something and throw money on it, money solves a lot of problems, right? Yeah. But when you're starting something new or you're working on a budget because, hey, listen, you're a mother, you might want to buy your son them new Jordans, right? So like, Okay, do I pay for it? Or take care of my son? So there's real life responsibilities behind everybody. So what I would recommend to people is like find your niche, right?
Okay.
If it's something you really want to commit, let's say somebody really wants to commit to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, all right, I got to invest in, if I'm doing it remotely, like we're having this conversation now in 2 different places, I got to invest in a remote portal, StreamYard, Riverside, FM. It's a bunch of different ones that fit your best needs, right? So you got to invest in that. Number 2, you got to invest in a separate page on Instagram, which is free. But obviously, if you don't know how to manipulate algorithm or you're not good on Reels, then you might want to go get a third party to help you with that. So I would recommend those 2 things, right? Letting the Instagram kind of be your, done right, not just you posting pictures with somebody, manipulating it, working the algorithms. Invest in that area. Invest in a good camera, a good, mic, a good, computer or laptop, and go that route. Go slow. Start to just like build it like organically, low hanging fruit. Give it to your friends and family. Sometimes friends and families are our worst critic because not necessarily everybody who rocks with us, let's say, doesn't rock with us. Yeah. But you gotta have a base to start somewhere. So another thing in the beginning, don't cost you nothing, is me putting my advertising hat on. Is like, who's my audience? Who's my demographic? I don't know. Everybody's my audience. Well, break it down. Take your age, right? Whatever age you are. I won't ask you your age, Jennifer. You won't ask what my age.
I'm 41. I'm proud of it.
You don't look 41. Black don't crack.
Well, thank you.
You say, okay, I'm 41, right? Round off to 40. So I would go 10 up and 5 down. So when somebody goes, who's your audience? 35 to 50. Bang. Just like that.
Okay.
Because most of the times you're probably talking about things that represent you. Your friends, your family, colleagues, you're probably all in the same age bracket. So that's your audience. So you can say, hey, 35 to 50 is my audience. Are you a college grad? Do you hang out with a lot of college grads? Do you hang out with a lot of people who make money? Do you hang out with people who don't make money? Well, that's your audience. I'm not saying all the part, but normally in the beginnings, our friends and colleagues are who we're talking to, whether we're at a beauty parlor. I don't go to barber no more, but if I'm hanging out just at the barbershop talking smack, that's my audience. So who are those people? So that's my demographic. Again, early on, because when you don't know, when you're starting out, you don't know what you're talking about. Now you could be somebody who's just big on you big on pop culture, right? And that's what you want to talk about that. Well, then that's you going after people who want to hear pop culture, the TMZ audience. You might be somebody who's big into politics. You don't necessarily have a show on it yet, but you watch MSNBC and Fox and all the CNN and all those networks all day long, and that's your conversation. My audience is people who are into politics. I always say 950s audiences that I say that 30 to 55 that works all day but still got some swag on the weekends, because I look at that as myself. I work all week, day job, corporate life, get it. But then on the weekends, here in New York, we might rock the Timbs. I don't know about the whole market. Rock that Timbs in New York in the winter. And that's our audience, that professional, African-American, Hispanic audience, primarily, not that we're cross-gender and nationality. That's our core. And we know that, hey, because of who I am and who my team is, people who work all week, but they still know how to have a good time. They don't wear a suit to the barbecue, and they still have a little swag. And that's how I would share to people. Know your audience and then watch it grow. Because again, you don't ever want to stay stagnant. You want to grow it. So, maybe after a year doing this, now you're talking about things you didn't talk about. Maybe you're bringing on guests that when you was with the barbershop crew, you're now talking about other things. Now your audience and your demographic grows. But number one, you have to pick things you want to talk about. Don't be 41 talking to 25, talking to 15-year-olds.
Right. It's kind of weird.
Right, exactly. So know your audience and talk about things that represent who you are, because 9 times out of 10, if it's your audience and your crowd and you've got an expertise in it, somebody's going to listen from that audience and that crowd.
Okay. All right. Excellent advice. Sounds like
we're doing good.
Yeah, we're doing excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So you've helped so many companies with marketing strategies, big brands. So what are key branding lessons that everyday entrepreneurs, especially us single moms building businesses, what can we learn from the big players in the game?
Well, the big players, the one thing I would say about big players that is different from a mom and pop is they understand there's a cost of doing business.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have small companies or startups or independent businesses. They feel they can cut corners. And I give you an example.
Right.
I was in a meeting a few weeks ago, and we were talking about advertising, right? And I was presenting my brand and why it makes sense. And the
Mm-hmm.
person came back to me, very successful person. They came back and said, well, I use TikTok. And I'm not knocking TikTok. TikTok has made millionaires, right?
Right.
But TikTok is not a successful advertising portal alone. It's a nice add-on.
Right.
But when you run a small business, you gotta know the cost of doing business. That separates somebody who's taking it from a hobby where they forget they're doing a talk show. If they make cakes, if they doing picking up people's laundry, whatever it is, from just something you do to get by or something I'm just trying to hustle to a business, there's a cost, right?
Yeah.
Again, if you're doing it as a real business and you're trying to get advertisers, why would anybody advertise with you if you don't invest in yourself? So,
Right.
like, if you don't have an EIN number, or if you're trying to get people to send you cash apps instead of routing money to your business bank account,
Right.
then you're not serious about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that, Jennifer, to say there's nothing wrong with hobbies, right?
Yeah.
I used to play football, but and I know guys who necessarily can't compete no more because they're too old and their knees are broken. But they'll go bowl, they're golf, but that don't mean they're going on a PGA tour,
Right.
But they just do it as fun. There's nothing wrong with that. But the minute you say I'm a business owner or I got a podcast, how many people you probably meet? This is how we met. How many people you probably met to say, yo, I got a show?
Yeah.
And then you go, well, okay, you got a show. What are you doing with your show? Well, we're on Instagram Live. We got a YouTube.
Yeah.
You don't have a show. We're not the same.
Right.
Once you start to accept the fact that you are a business owner and this is something you want to do, you got to find a budget. Now, again, that budget can be very small in the beginning because you might not have the time. The budget could be $5 a week, right? Hey, I got $20 a month to start this. Okay, fine. There's advertising portals for $20. They're not very big, but there are things to do. There's $20 portals and things you can do to grow a brand.
Yeah.
It might take you longer, but they're there. But it starts with just that mindset. I told this to somebody the other day, a younger person that was starting a show, and they was like, yeah, I'm in college. I don't have a lot of money. I get that. I said, money's not the most important thing. It's your time. If you commit your time and you watch the results will find you money. The bag will find you. You don't have to chase the bag. The bag will find you if you do it right. So again, the key is obviously the time part, but the key is obviously once I commit my time, I have to put some commerce to that. Right. Maybe you put up $5 a day. A lot of people screw up money on a regular, like, hey, listen, especially in our cities, you can really, look up and spend $100 and well, what did I get? I don't even know what I got. Right. So maybe taking some of that access money and putting it aside. If you're working with a team, sometimes you're not doing it by yourself, you're working with a team, then your team has to have the same mindset. One person can't be like, it's three of us and two are doing it, are making it happen and one's not. Right. But if so if you're with a team or individual, you got to have an equal mindset. Obviously, it's easy if it's you. You can put together a game plan. I'm gonna put together maybe every paycheck I get. I'm gonna put together maybe $100. Right. After a month, maybe I got $400. At that $400, I'm gonna be able to pay for my online stuff, get a really good mic. Maybe I don't want to do it from home. Maybe I want to do it from the studio.
Yeah.
Look for public access cable in your markets. A lot of markets have public access, where that's now community-based TV, where they have studios that you don't have to pay for. Obviously, you can pay for a studio if you wanted to, but putting money aside for exposure, promotion, and editing. You could do it like this, just like Jennifer and I are doing it. You're doing it from home. Invest maybe in a great editor that can do some different things. Invest in somebody that can promote you out. But again, once you decide that it's a business and it's something I'm really going to commit to, and just because you commit to it might not be long, you might see after 6 months, this is not for me. But if you give it some time for the miracle to happen, right, we'll see what happens. And it's okay sometimes in life you try something and it just didn't work out. That's fine too. But give it the real challenge and the real focus it deserves, because all this is a challenge, right? There's nobody. You're not guaranteed. It's because you use your your iPad or your iPhone to do something out there that see people even gonna care about it. But give it the chance for people to care about it.
Right. Keep going. Don't stop.
Exactly.
I think back on all the things I started and then stopped. I'm like, man, if I would have kept doing it from back then, I would have
Exactly.
been
But
way
sometimes
farther
it's
ahead.
not ready, right? It's just
Yeah,
like cooking, right? Like,
that's true.
like, boy, I'm hungry, but I don't want to wait 3 hours for that turkey to bake.
Yeah.
So you go get a hamburger, right? And you go,
Mhm.
wow, the turkey would have been so much of a better meal than this hamburger because I'm still hungry. But sometimes, 2020 is hindsight. Like people tell me all the time when I started doing 950, I
Mhm.
was older, but I wasn't ready to do that. The industry in the world wasn't even presented me the opportunity to do an independent program when I was in college. So
Right.
sometimes things just are not, when it's ready, it's not for you. But when it's right.
Yeah.
So again, and that's everybody's story is different, So, but when it's right and you feel it's right, jump on it. Because again, the one thing I've learned is that, and I really take this to heart, is that you unless you believe in what Dionne Warwick put out and what have you, you only get one time to do this thing.
Right.
And life is short, and I find myself talking to my mother, and and she always says, like, look, my mother's in her 80s. Like, listen, if you want to do something, you better just do it. If you
Yeah.
fail, so what? People fail every day. But that doesn't mean that if you don't do it, then you've already failed. So
Right.
and with anything, if anybody can get anything from my conversation on your fabulous show today, is that that's whatever it is out there you want to do it. If you want to have a family, go find somebody. If you want to, start a business, then start it. If you want to, get in shape and run a marathon, get your butt to the gym. Put
Yeah.
the work in. Nothing happens overnight without work. I don't care how good you are. An old football coach once told me production means nothing without, potential means nothing without production. So you can
Mhm.
have all the potential in the world, but if you don't put the work in, nothing will ever produce.
Yes, that's right. And that's some really great advice from your mom too. That failure is definite if you never start. And
You've
also,
already failed without the try. Exactly.
yeah, and failure is relative to people's perspective, different
Mhm.
perspectives, because one person might say this this podcast setup could be a failure to them, and to another person, this could be the best thing they've ever saw, and they're aiming to be here. So I
Exactly.
think it's very relative, and if you keep going and you persevere with professionalism, I think you can do anything. So,
That's the key word.
yep,
That professionalism word will
yeah.
always be your cream to the top.
Yeah, definitely. And it will set you apart from so many other people. And if you can just get that part right, then you're that much ahead. So why not? All
All we
right.
do is win, Jennifer. All we do is win.
That's right. Okay. So, all right, let's talk about the influence media has on Black boys.
Ugh.
How does what they see, hear, and consume shape their mindsets and even their ambitions?
Well, you know what? I would like to say that it's all kids under 18, right? But that's
Yeah,
not the case, right? It's
yeah,
even grown men in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, right?
especially.
Yeah, right. That's another show we can do. You probably can
You're
bring it up.
yeah.
But I think again, it's very it's very scary, and it's extremely addictive. And because social media and these apps and interactive apps, you can be anything you want on social media, right?
Hmm.
You can go into you can go into a clubhouse or something, and you
Yeah.
can be anything you want to be, right? And you
Yeah.
can see yourself anything you want to be, and you don't. And Twitter and or X, all these things,
Hmm.
you can utilize these platforms to create these alter egos. Number one, you could use it to spew hate. You
Yeah.
can do it with so much, and what's happened is that people take everything they see and believe it's gospel. I mean, let's face it. I don't care what political side you are. There's somebody who ran for president based off just what Twitter put out or X put
Yeah.
out, and use that to their advantage, and that's here or there. But I
Right.
think again, it's very effective in our community to a negative connotation. because people are watching these videos, and the videos are like a car crash, right? Like if you was driving home today, and if you was in an accident because traffic, most people are watching the car crash, right?
Right.
Oh,
That's the
gosh, I don't
delay.
want to look at it, but it's a car crash. And we see in people 24 hours, 7 days a week, it never stops on social media. And I think, again, we'd be fools to think that we're not conditioned, or certain people don't pick up these things. Like, on my show, for instance, we've had guests, right? I had Jamel Bryant, who, from Luke Cage, and who was on Power. And he talked about how, on his character on Power, people thought he was actually robbing homes and killing folks. Like, that's TV, but sometimes you see
damage
something
is done.
right. You become Pavlov's dog, right? If I see it so much, there are certain folks who are not savvy enough. They'll start to believe stuff. So social media, back to your question, puts things out there, these images, and whether that's girls at young ages thinking OnlyFans is the way, or dudes feeling like, I don't know how this person got their hard work. I just see they got a Maserati and all these other things out here, and people think there's shortcuts to life. There's no shortcuts. There's no free lunch. So the mindset of like, well, I gotta be a boss, and you ain't never had a job. Who are you bossing? What are you doing? So I think, again, it's scary for young men and women, because it's equal. And I think for older men and women, is allowing them to dream, and that dream is not a productive dream. That dream's a lullaby. And really, what it does affect is when things start to happen, political changes, Roe versus Wade, and all these other things are happening in broad daylight. They're not being done behind dark. And it's because sometimes, especially things that affect our community, is because we're being lullabied to sleep by all the junk on social media. We care about what Cardi B and Offset does more than what we care about, losing, health insurance, health care.
Right.
And it's scary because, again, we're all are at play with this. So it's not just Kevin and Jennifer, it's other people who we need to be awake, because the more voices that are awake and understand what's going on, then you can't be fooled. But if we keep throwing out all the nonsense, what's going on with Diddy, and what did Cameron and May say today, we forget what's real, and we get caught up in this mess. And I'm not saying we can't enjoy ourselves. I like a good, read once in a while too. But that can't be every day, all day. It's like eating McDonald's, right? Or eating fast food every day for every meal.
Right.
It's not good for you. Not to say you can't have a Big Mac once in a while, and some fries and an apple
nuggets.
Some nuggets, with the barbecue sauce. But it shouldn't be every meal,
right?
Because what happens with that, right? If you eat it every day, or you have cake every day, you drink sodas all day, all night, it will kill you and your teeth. So you can't do that every day. So that's just how the consumption of social media is. It's okay. Listen, we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for social media. So it does have some positives. But just like fire warms our homes, it warms our waters, it allows us to cook. But if you got too close to fire, it'll kill you.
Yep.
So just like anything else, moderation and respect for what it does, good and bad. And realizing everything you see is not real. Digest, use your mind that God gave you to be productive.
Great point. And even if you see something and it's not real, it's false, it still affects your subconscious. Like, I think I compare that to being just in a courtroom and listening to lawyers go back and forth. Like, they'll say something knowing it's a lie, knowing it'll be stricken from the record, but the damage is still done.
It's accomplished, right?
Yeah, you said it. Now. Exactly. Right. So it's the exact same thing. So great point. So how can moms help their sons navigate media in a way that empowers them instead of making them feel like they have to live up to, the boss image and the unrealistic stereotypes? How can we help our sons navigate through the media?
Well, this is something close to my heart, because I'm helping my sister raise her grandkids. Sometimes families are nuclear, right? And we are our brother's keeper. And I have a great nephew who's 13 now, and he's looking at the world a little different. Things are happening to his. He's grown in his body, and he's like, well, what's going on? And He has, in fact, so he's growing, right? These things that young men, we're talking about boys right now, young boys, start to develop at certain ages. And so, I pulled him aside and said, this is normal. This is human. This is what you're supposed to do. And I think, again, parents, you can't just shut your kid out from social media, because they're going to find it one way or the other. When we were kids, maybe that was like, finding all the stuff off the street. Nowadays, all these kids got cell phones. You need them to have a cell phone for other reasons, but they're going to use the technology, right? Schools are giving laptops out, so they're going to find it anyway. So
if you block something, their friends have the phones, and so
exactly. Oh, you see this one, you see this?
Yep.
Embrace it. Allow them to. I think parents should allow their kids to empower what they watch and view, right? Just like, and I equate it back to my show, not that I planned it this way, but like there's a part for everybody, right? Mom might want you to, hey, listen, you know what? Maybe SATs are coming, or you need to use Chat GPT to educate yourself and be better. But then it's the other thing, like, okay, you know what? Mama's watching Love and Hip Hop, so maybe that is not for your your son, but allow him to have his little thing that his group likes. Monitor it, because that's just being a smart parent. But you allow them empowerment. So it's not they got this elaborate piece of equipment that they have access to, but every time they go to something that's fun, it's blocked. If you do that, it's not a fun piece anymore. Like, I don't want it no more. So what do they do? They're gonna find that I guess that that ratchet or BS stuff somewhere that you don't necessarily want them to find. Now
it'll be that much more appealing to them also.
Exactly. So I'm not telling a parent to, which some parents I heard do. I'm not telling a parent to say, hey, you know what? I don't want my child going out to drinking after hours. He's gonna have a drink, gonna drink with me. I'm not saying be a friend of your child, because they're not equal to you. You're the parent. But I am allowing you to say, hey, you know what? Allow them to have some empowerment. Allow them to grow, especially as they get to their teenage years. Their minds are now starting to grasp and find stuff. And if they find it like, hey, listen, mom lets me have some boundaries. I know I can't do too much. I can't say I'm a grown man, stay after 3 a.m. I'll get my tail taken care of. But I do know that mom allowed me at 10 o'clock. Maybe it's a video game. She'll allow me to play on the game. Maybe I want to do Call of Duty. Maybe you say, well, I'm not ready for you to do that, but you can play Madden. So little things like that, you give them a little, let's like somebody says, I'm going to give you the trust you give me. If I can trust you, I'll start to give you more and more trust. That's why I always tell my great nephew, respect your grandmother, but if you want to do something, present yourself as a young man, because you are a man. We're men, right? I always say, hey, obviously my mother lives there. My sister is my nephew, and he's my great nephew. I'm like, hey, if your uncle's not there, you're the man of the house. Even at 13, the windows are closed. You make sure everything is off. You're the man of the house, because we're men. And I think sometimes, and in single parent situations, I understand women do a great job. My mother raised me by herself, even to the point where, even though I love my father, rest in peace, my mother was there when I scraped my knee, or the first girl I wanted to take out said no, or I didn't make the football team at school. Mom was there to wipe those tears. So yes, mom can't raise me to be a man, but my mother also brought in my uncles. I had a couple of mentors. So it doesn't have to be just the biological father. We would like that. That's the way it's supposed to be. But the script's not always written the way it's supposed to be. So a man you can trust in your life, ladies, whether that's a mentor, whether that's an uncle, or a friend, a family, somebody, and maybe if you don't have that, maybe just having him watch motivational speakers or people you represent in video that represent something that you believe is positive. We don't know these people, but they give off positive images. It's a lot of people who were raised watching the Cosby Show. We know what happened with Bill later on in real life, but that image of a black father and a black family that were both professional, making great money, with a family that was going through some things, but they were great kids. That's real. Today's world wants to think that's kind of a fantasy, and that rubs me to the core, because that's not fantasy. That's real. We want it to be real, but again, bringing somebody in that can help. I used to coach youth football, And it's kids that even to this day I don't coach anymore. These guys are now young men, and some are fathers themselves. They still call me, hey coach, on Father's Day, I get a call from some of these guys, or because you was like a father figure. And that's something I took pride in. Because again, I think it wasn't about them not being my biological kids. It's about me being a black man being responsible. Because again, if I'm not, well, what happens when these kids start turning? When people saying, I'm afraid of black men, or black men, young black men, or trouble, or when you see a black kid and people grab their personal title across the street. Well, then it's up to me and others like me to let these young black men know they're loved. A lot of them come from rough environments, and because you have this rough exterior, people don't see the inside, the gooey chocolate, right?
Mm-hmm.
That rough shell, because they had to stay rough. Because some of the neighborhoods, they had to pretend to be that. One kid told me once he was scared to walk to school, and he had to look tough, right? But he was scared. So if us as men help our young men grow, that gets passed along. The mentor that I had many years ago, he always said, I don't need nothing from you. I don't need no money, don't know what. Just pass it down. And I've always said that, I don't coach sport anymore, but I still work with kids in my community because, again, you should never have to be afraid of somebody who looks like you.
Right.
And again, it starts at home. I always tell friends and family, guys who have kids, take care of your kids, because at the end of the day, those kids are going to grow and develop. And if you're not in their lives now, and we in the circle of life, we all grow. We like to think we stay sexy and fine the rest all our lives, but we get older and they don't want to deal with you. How do you feel then? How are you going to feel? And especially if they're thriving, or if some other man was in their life and made them successful, or helped them grow, how that's going to make you feel. Once you, a kid learns it himself, or finds another avenue, it's hard to come back.
Yeah, it is.
So do it the right way now. Forget the mother. Some relationships don't work. But that's not that child's fault. Child nothing to do with that. Respect that child. Do what you got to do to be in that child's life. Sometimes women can be vindictive. I get that too. But fight hard to be in your child's life, because they deserve it and you deserve it as well.
Yep, that's true. Because I'm very big on having male mentors in a child's life, especially, for the son.
Yes.
And you have to be honest with yourself. Like, if the father of the child is not available for whatever reason, you can't just, pick just grandpa or uncle if they're not effective. You have to make sure that you're not just handing your son off to a family member because they're there.
Right.
And
because they got a male organ. Right. Yeah. That's not good enough. Right. That's
true. In our culture, we're so like, it gets detrimental when you think about all the generations going back that have been affected by everything negatively. So it's like, it's hard to find somebody that has gone through those the rites of passage of manhood, and who understands all of the different things you need to know to be a man. So it's like, you might need uncle, plus go to somebody who is a male mentor, who wants to be a male mentor, and that's his profession, just so your son gets the best all around care that you can do. Because as moms, it's like, we do our best, but we do need that male aspect, because there's a difference. And if we can be honest with ourselves in doing that, we can help our sons better, because they're not going to tell us like, Mom, I need a male mentor. Like, I need a guy. They're not going to do that. So it's up to us to find an effective male mentor, not just your cousin who's in the streets. You just send him off because he's an older guy. And not even, every pastor is not good. You can't just say, I'm gonna just send him to church. He'll be all right. No.
You got to village sometimes. Like, I think again, it's kind of a mixture, right? Maybe you get from pastor, you get to spiritual, and maybe it's a guy that's a little rough around the edges, but he gives them how to maneuver in these streets. And maybe it's a guy who's professional. So sometimes it could be piecemealed. Maybe it's a sports coach that gives them discipline. So it doesn't, again, it'd be ideal. Whereas, hey, you know what? Father was raised right, and he got it. He passed it along. Sometimes, kids have kids, and sometimes the father doesn't know how to be a dad because maybe he didn't have that. So how how I'm going to raise a child, and I really wasn't raised my way. And I think
Yep.
again, that's just for another day's story. Is some of the men that are out here, like we look, and again, it's not to judge anybody, but we just see where some of these young men are not being men, and that's going back to the social media aspect. And I know, like I said again, maybe I'm an old get off my lawn type guy, but it's about just being a man.
Yeah.
It has to do what you like or what you want, but you're still a man. You are. So some of these kids are having kids. Mothers, this is about men, but mothers are not able to be mothers, and fathers are not ready to be fathers. So how do we get that? So we have to learn to help each other out. And I think it's bigger than just the internal home. Whereas, oh well, whatever happens to them is fine. Then we hear on the news every day when something happens at home, or there was abuse found, or neglect. Oh, now everybody wants to be helpful. But when was that? You saw that kid going to school every morning, and he had a little body odor. Or where was that every morning when it was like 10 degrees out? You from Chicago, and they ain't have no coat. Where was the help then? I believe in helping a situation before it gets bad. Because sometimes you don't know what people go through. This social media era has got us warped that everybody's living good and eating good. When I used to coach, it was a couple of kids I would take shopping because I'm like, what's wrong with you? You like, you're chasing a ghost or something. You're moving like molasses, and they go, Coach, I haven't eaten in a day and a half.
Wow.
That's real, and that happens a lot. So again, don't close your eyes to things that are real. And sometimes we kind of close our eyes. Oh, that ain't my kid, that ain't my family. But if that kid offers you a threat because that kid is starving, well, then you want to blame the kid for, or wow, these kids ain't raised right. No, the kid's just struggling. And when people are in a struggle moment, they do things. I mean, if we look at how the structure works in the animal kingdom, when animals are hungry, what they do, they go hunt, right?
Yeah.
So again, we're the only creatures on this planet that have the ability to rationalize. So I can if a young man's having issues and I can help, maybe I don't have the answer. Well, let me go get somebody else. That's where that village comes into play.
Right.
So again, even say it's the fathers who are doing the job. And there's a lot of fathers out there doing the job, and I salute you.
Yeah.
If you don't have the answer, that's okay.
Yeah.
Go get the answer.
Yeah. Go find it. It's all part of it. Part of the job. It's not easy. Since we don't see a lot of representation of actual parenting, motherhood, fatherhood, in media, it seems like it's such hard work because we don't see it being done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can go back as a time when people felt like the government was even trying to, break the Black family. A time when, like in the 70s, where they wouldn't give a mother, assistance, public assistance that she was going through if she had a father home. And there's a little story, the show Good Times, with Esther Roll, rest in peace, and John Amos, rest in peace as well. The initial part of that show is, and you're from Chicago, it was set in Chicago, is that they didn't want the family to have a father. Esther Roll fought to say this family needs a father. If we're going to put the image on TV, even though we're struggling, this family needs a father. It needs a figurehead. It needs a male structure. And they got that, until they killed.
He had a big role, though. There was a big presence.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So we're almost done. I got like 3 more quick questions.
I'm good. You driving the car. I'm just sitting in the cab first. I'm just sitting in shotgun. You good?
Okay, cool, good. All right. So, what is the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
That's okay to fail. It's okay to fail because, again, and we talked about it briefly earlier, the shots you don't take are the shots you've already missed.
Yeah.
No, everybody wants to be perfect in life, right? You might make an omelet in the morning and you want it to be perfect, right? It's not always perfect. Sometimes in life you have to take an audible. But again, if you don't try, you've already failed. So again, a mentor of mine, I was like, I don't want to show. We're gonna sound stupid. What I'm gonna talk about? Nobody's gonna listen. You've already failed. So don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to follow your dreams. Don't be afraid when you sleep at night and you wake up in the morning and it's 5:30 and it's cold out and I got to get up. and you allow yourself that 3 to 5 minutes, like, oh wow, I wish I was somewhere warm, or wow, I wish I was doing something else in my life. Don't let that 3 to 5 minute cloud of wander just be a dream. Go for
Right.
it. Go for it.
Pursue it.
Yes.
Okay. So, all right. So don't be afraid to fail. That's the best piece of advice, y'all. Go on and put it out there. Okay. So what's one media personality or entrepreneur that inspires you?
Wow. Dead or alive?
Yes.
I would have to say Muhammad Ali.
Okay.
And the reason why I say Ali is because toward the end of Ali's life, everybody loved him, right? He was loved, right?
Right.
Remember my father telling me about Ali because, obviously that was in his day, and how
Yeah.
people, hated him. Oh, you're a draft dodger. You don't love this country, and was stripped of everything, right? Imagine, you being at the top of your game, heavyweight champion of the world. Everybody loves you, making money. Men want to be you, women want to be with you. And then one day that's taken from you overnight for 3 years because of your beliefs. Not because you did something wrong, not because you abused the system, because of your beliefs. And all these always say, and I'm not fighting a war that a Viet Cong never did nothing to me. So I'm not fighting a war that I didn't create. It wasn't until much later that people realized this man was right, and he took the 3-year loss where he had to borrow money from people, and really, again, probably had to humble himself to shapes and forms that nobody will understand to get back to a top level. To before he died was so loved and revered. But again, I look at the struggle, and I think of an Ali struggle as like most of us, right? We work hard for something, and then maybe it's taken away from us. A la like COVID, right? You have a great job and you're doing well, and you're living out the dreams you like, and then all of a sudden that's snatched from you, right? Now I got to pivot. What do I do? A lot of people now starting businesses. That podcast is going, or whatever it is, and you pivot and you find another lane to be successful. So to answer your question, for me, it's Muhammad Ali, because again, my father was a big boxing fan, and I remember him always telling me these stories. And then when I became an adult myself, so I was kind of just reading his story, and not just the sports part, but the life part. And again, just the ability to reinvent yourself and stand for principles when everybody else tells you you're crazy. Because a lot of people today will do things just for money, right? They don't, hey, we don't have to mention any names, but there's people in media that like, wow, they really just sold out, right? Just for a check. He wouldn't do that, and I respect him for that. Rest in peace, Muhammad Ali.
Yeah, that's great. That's dope. I like that. Okay, so last question.
Yeah.
If you can give your younger self one tip about success, what would it be?
I use this question a lot too. I would tell my younger self that Kevin is going to be okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. Growing up, I saw a lot of things. My father, unfortunately, had left, and he was living his best life. I loved him still to his dying day, but it wasn't dad. It was my father. It wasn't dad. I saw my mother struggle a lot, not just to take care of us. It was 3 of us, but just emotionally, right? Things I didn't realize till I was older and understood as a man. But I always used to tell myself, even as a kid, your current situation does not have to be your future. Growing up in New York City, we had the unique ability to get on a subway, which we still do. I choose not to take subways much anymore. But as a young person, it's the only form of transportation you had. You did it.
What part of New York did you grow up in? I'm sorry.
What you say that? Say that again.
What part of New York are you from?
I grew up in the Bronx, so boogie down, BX stand up, home hip hop. And I was on the subway and just ride the subway. I could ride it to Times Square. I can ride it to Coney Island, and some of your audience will know what these things at Times Square. Everybody knows Times Square.
Yeah.
Coney Island's very popular place, beach and things like that. Nathan's hot dogs. But you can get on a train for at that time $1.50, whatever, and you can see the city, see different places, and realize that where I go back home might not be so attractive, but nevertheless, if I apply myself, these things are in arm's reach. Like just like how Power Start, it's a big rich town. I just come from the Power Start, but that mentality again helped inspire me. So the younger Kevin, the older Kevin will tell the younger Kevin, it's going to be all right. You do what you got to do now. When you get to a certain point, stay the course, respect your elders, keep your focus. Younger Kevin could have went a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
Stay focused. It's gonna be all right. It's not always a smooth road. Sometimes you got to make they're doing traffic and you got to turn left, and then you got to turn right, and then you got to make a U-turn to get back on track. But stay the course because it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be all right.
That's good. I'll take that advice for myself. Thank you.
Yours.
So real quick about New York, is it true what they say about on the subway, the rats in the garbage?
Oh yeah, the rats are like they pay taxes here. I mean,
really? Are they really big and huge? Because we have them in Chicago, but I hear they're like
they're bigger than New York. Yeah. Oh no, New York. Like I said, they pay taxes, they pay rent.
What?
They set the restaurants. They're part of our population. And again, like I said, I love New York, but it's a filthy city. They got to do better. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's almost to a point now when it's from New York. You just kind of like you see a rat. When a person screams, they're not from here. Like just a rat. He going about his business.
I'm like, what do you mean? It's just a rat? Are you kidding me?
just slide to the left.
Oh no!
Right, crisscross, reverse. But it is what it is. Living here, you gotta know how to maneuver around the rats. They're everywhere, not just the bad neighborhoods. You could be paying $5,000 a month rent or more, and you're gonna see that rat in the morning by your garbage.
Do they come up to you, or are they scared of you?
No, they're not scared of you. They
last question about the rats, right?
The rats pay rent. Listen, I'm supposed to be here. You looking at me funny for? Man,
oh no. I cannot deal with that. Okay. But I do want to go visit. I haven't been yet.
You will love it here. I mean, I will say we got issues, but the best time to come to New York, and this is just my opinion, and when you come, let me know.
Okay.
I'll show you around.
Right.
New York is best between Labor Day and New Year's, right?
Really?
That's in the summer. No, I love colors, right? So the trees, the colors, the fall, like doing like how Chicago is doing a little leather jackets, not too hot, not too cold. Thanksgiving time, Thanksgiving parade and all that. The holiday season in New York is best. The trees, the colors, the Rockefeller Center. After the ball drops, I get seasonal depression. Like, all right, January, let me get out of here.
Right.
September, Labor Day weekend to New Year's, those couple of months, best time in the city.
Okay. I'll keep that in mind. I'll definitely let you know if I touch down out there.
We'll have you on the lounge as well.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. That'd be so dope. All right. So with that being said, where can people connect with you and learn more about 950 Lounge and 950 Media?
Well, you can catch me in the best team in radio 950 Lounge every weekday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern on various networks, but primarily Backstage Radio. Go to backstageradio.net. We're on Odyssey and all the different platforms to listen to our show. You can watch our show on Nubian TV anytime. Nubian TV.net, I believe is the website. You can catch me on Instagram at 950kev. You can follow me on X at 950kev. My show, which is just popped on the bottom, 950 Lounge on Instagram. And you can always find information on our website, www.950lounge.com. We're getting ready to go through a restructure of the site, construction of the site to give you more viewing, more experiences, and obviously more in touch with what I like to call the best team in radio.
Awesome, y'all. This has been a masterclass on media branding and legacy building. Make sure to follow at 950 Kev and at 950 Lounge for more of these gems. And thank you so much, the wonderful Kevin, for being on our show today. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to connecting soon.
Jennifer, thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it. You are a gem. And get yourself a good pair of sunglasses because your future is very bright.
Thank you very much. I'll take that.
No doubt. I accept it's real.
That's right. I got it. Thank you, Kevin.
Take care.
All right.